Hi, welcome to my channel. I created this channel mainly because mental health awareness is taboo, I swear. And it's not communicated very well, and it's not cared for in the sense of what it needs to be in the world in general. And so I thought I'd create a channel, hopefully find some like-minded individuals or somebody that's going through the same issues that I am struggling with in my life, and hopefully we can help bring mental health awareness be more prominent in the world, because Lord knows we all have our days, right? So I am a single mom. I have been for most of my children's lives, and they all three are now adults. Well, I have one bipolar daughter, and I have another child, my oldest, who in 2021 was diagnosed with schizophrenia, bipolar, and now has been re-diagnosed with a schizophrenic affective disorder. So, and what is that? I'm going to cover what it is today, that topic of schizophrenic affective disorder. And then I plan on coming back on and kind of going through our journey of how we got here, and then how are we dealing with day-to-day life. And hopefully this will help someone out there as well as myself keep my own sanity. So what is schizophrenic disorder? I have a 28-year-old adult child who, like I said, in 2021 was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Now, schizophrenia is obviously kind of well known around the world, and a lot of times it's portrayed as a negative thing, especially you hear in a lot of like serial case killer stuff, and what is it, Norman Bates, right? And then of course in movies they portray these individuals as these terrifying people, and the truth is that they're really not. They can be at times, but for the majority of the time, in the normal world, it's not what it's portrayed as in the movies. And that was another reason for me creating this channel. So schizoaffective disorder actually is a disorder. It's a long-term illness in your brain. And people with this illness are going to have both signs of schizophrenia, as well as moods changes, such as the low moods of the bipolarness. And with the illness, they have trouble living with how they think, talk, act. Their moods change very quickly from, happy to sad in seconds. That's something that's extremely hard to deal with. Sometimes people might even feel like they're walking on eggshells around that person, especially if they're not taking their medications. So there's two kinds of this disorder. There's a low mood or depression type of order, where they feel sad, empty, and have less pleasure in life. This happens more often, unfortunately, to women than it does in elderly women than it does to men, that type. But then there's the bipolar illness. And then this is the one that my son happens to have. Your mood and thinking it is quickly changing. You're happy one second, you're angry the next second, to literally sad within seconds sometimes. It's called mania when that happens. And when they have a high moment, sometimes they can feel powerful. They can actually think that they can literally do anything. And that tends to happen more in the younger people. Now, schizophrenia disorder, I found out through my journey thus far, doesn't always come out in adolescence. It actually, especially for men, can trigger around that 25 your birth date for some reason. I don't know the significance of that yet because I'm still in the learning process of this whole entire journey. But it can also be a negative thing as far as that person not wanting help. I'm fortunate for the most case. My son is asking for help, and we've had to go through some legal hoops, and we'll get into that on another video. They, a lot of times with this particular disorder, just want to be left alone. And that can cause a lot of problems because if not treated with this brain illness, many have many signs that they're going into an episode. Doctors call that an acute attack, I find out. My son actually just had one here in February. Unfortunately, every time they have those type of attacks and they're not on medication, and even with medication, it takes longer and longer for them to come out of those acute attacks. So nobody really quite knows why or what causes schizophrenia or the schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. And that's really sucks, right? A lot of times as parents especially, we want answers of how come this is happening, and when you don't get that, it's hard because, you know, you raise your children to be productive, and it's not like he was in a car accident and he had a brain injury or anything like that. And so it kind of hits you out of left field, and it's very hard to deal with, especially if you've never dealt with anything like this. And so that was another reasoning for me to start this channel, because I have never dealt with anything quite like this. And so it's kind of on the, like, almost like raising your children to a certain extent, right? There's no book on raising your children, no right or wrong way, I guess you can say. You just got to put one foot in front of the other and keep going every single day. And it's pretty much the same way with somebody that has schizophrenia or schizoaffective disorder. So it can be a genetic trait, but they just really don't know, to be honest with you. Signs can vary from person to person. And so some of the things that a schizoaffective disorder person goes through is seeing or thinking things that aren't real. Troubles being with others in different places, especially jobs. They're not very sociable, or they can feel awkward, or they don't connect with people. And that's a huge thing, because obviously, how can they keep a job if they can't function in it? Strange thoughts, not able to understand things around them. It really is a huge thing. Can't stop having feelings about other people all of a sudden, places, times that are not true. So they get paranoid very easily a lot of the time. It just takes one thing and they're in this paranoid state. So feeling like other people are definitely out to get them for sure. Hearing voices when nobody else does, like, that's a real thing, people. Not being able to think clearly is another thing that happens. It's just they have feelings or thoughts that they can't control. Those things also kind of go with that paranoia, because they hear kind of what they want to hear, or see what they're thinking that they're seeing, or hearing the voices telling them that person is lying, and you as a person, you can't hear it, right? So you have no idea. A lot of times I'm like, are you talking to me? Because I don't know, you're gonna have to repeat what you just said. And there's a lot of times where unfortunately he can't. It can become where they don't care about other people, or how they're looking at them. So that affects their hygiene and how they take care of themselves sometimes. They definitely have mood changes with their actual physical energy, not being able to stay awake and not understanding why they can't stay awake. They get too little sleep sometimes. They get too much sleep sometimes. But it seems to be the less sleep they get, the more triggers they have. So if you are dealing with somebody that has this disorder, my best advice is to make sure that they're getting an adequate amount of sleep, because it can definitely trigger a very serious episode, which is what just happened to me. They also can self-isolate. They don't want to be around each other, right? So there isn't really lab work that can be done to diagnose this. This is all a psychosis and an illness in the brain. And so there isn't any testing. No, there's no blood work. There's no MRI that's going to say that your child or your loved one has this condition. It's all just based on their activities and what they say and how they react to the certain things that the doctors would ask them, right? So it's literally almost like an interview process of the way that they think, feel, see. And if your person isn't truthful, it may get missed in their diagnosis. Or if they're not having an episode at the time that they're asked these questions, they could pass it with flying colors, and then 2 days later you're in an episode and trying to figure out how the doctor missed what's going on in your life. There are medications out there, and every medication is different for every single person. And most psychiatrists, so far in my experience, they're practicing basically, right? Practicing doctors. They don't know your body like you do. And so, unfortunately, the first few drugs may not work. They may be too much. I'll talk about that later, about our journey with our medications and what effects they had on my son, and how it changed him completely. Therapy is another. Talking therapy is very helpful with these individuals, a therapist, but not everybody's going to go with that either. Unfortunately, some people just don't feel comfortable talking to other people about personal stuff. Unfortunately, the world is extremely judgmental. And even though a therapist is supposed to be a safe place, when you're dealing with a paranoid person, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a safe place for them. So it's really needing to talk about the illness and how it affects you, and doing, some recognitions and stuff like that. It's really tough, guys. It really is. If your child or your loved one is put on medications, hopefully it's going to help them think more clearly, so that they can actually do day-to-day tasks, as such as grooming, personal grooming, doing the laundry, doing the dishes. Those tasks are easy for us to do. No questions. It's common sense. If you see dishes in the sink that are dirty, you either do them or you will put them in the dishwasher, right? In today's world. But for that other person, it could be I don't care, it's not my mess. It could be a lot of different things. I don't care that they're dirty. Let them sit there. So medications can help them to think a little bit more clear, more like we would think, and care about those type of things. It can help with low moods. It can help with mood balancing, improve their sleep, hopefully. But some of those medications out there also have side effects, and some of them, unfortunately, can become permanent side effects. So you're going to have to be an advocate for your person, if you have that ability to make sure that they're not being just given something, and they're not, and nobody's addressing the side effects, because that can be a serious issue in itself as well. So it's crazy, let me tell you. People with the schizophrenic affective order that I have with my son, there's certain things that need to be done in the home. You need to ask them if they want to go to the doctor. Sometimes when they're in that, you have to be very careful. And I'll probably do a whole video on what does an episode look like, because unfortunately I have had many episodes at this point. And so what are some of the danger signs that I've seen leading up to an episode may help somebody out there catch it a little bit faster. As you're going through it, you might think, well, I don't know. Should I not? What should I do? And those are real thoughts that race through your head. Like, is this an actual episode? Is it not? When do I talk to a doctor? When do I call 911? What, I would say for sure, if you feel unsafe, call 911 sooner than later. But not every episode is this dramatic, movie portrayed, crazy, violent episode. It just drives me crazy that that's how they portray it, as still to this day in society. So obviously, other extracurricular drugs taking for an individual that has this disorder can also be a trigger for that person. Not saying that I don't allow my son to have a glass of wine or something like that, but some of the medications, you have to be careful that you don't allow that, because it could cause some pretty bad stuff to happen, of course. But with the manic ups and downs, you really don't want anything that could add to fuel to the fire, let me tell you. So this channel hopefully is going to be, like I said, an outlet. I'm going to share with you guys, like I said, the journey of how we got to where we are today. How did we even get diagnosed? What were the events that took place to get us to this place? Like some of our drug errors and trials at the beginning, and what's happening now and today. Share some of his coping mechanisms that he's learned. Maybe at some point have him on here to talk about it himself. I'm not sure if that's something that he's willing to do or not at this point in time. He's just now coming to the reality that this is going to be a lifelong thing. And how do we manage it? And how do we manage it together as a family? And how do we make sure that we all stay safe? And let me tell you, they don't always know when an episode is about to happen either. And so how can you make sure that you keep yourself safe when that happens? And I want to discuss all of that on here. And I'd love for you guys to have inputs and comments and start a conversation around this topic, and bring some awareness to this dangerous yet not so dangerous sometimes topic. I mean, it can be pretty dangerous, unfortunately, but in my experience so far, it's not been too terrible. And definitely on medications, it definitely can be managed. And I'm also probably going to talk about the bipolar side of this. A lot of people in the world suffer with bipolar. Again, that is pretty much a genetic thing, and that is a chemical imbalance in your brain, and it does need to have medication. I unfortunately have a sister also that had that. She actually inherited it from my dad, who was bipolar, manic depressive as well. And she has it too. And she struggles through life very harshly, unnecessarily, because she refuses to take any kind of medication for it. And that can cause a lot of internal turmoil. Unfortunately, we're going to talk about one of the side effects of not taking medication and taking the medication can be suicide attempts, and how that's affected me in my life. And hearing those things or seeing those things, in your life is just unfortunate, and it needs to be talked about. It's a real thing. It happens, and you don't always see it coming. Let me tell you, because I just had a cousin that I made plans with her, and 2 weeks later she was gone, right? So unfortunately, this stuff is genetic to a certain extent, but it isn't always. If you'd like to join me on my journey, of course, through this discussion of the schizoaffective disorder and bipolar and just mental health awareness in general, please make sure to subscribe to my channel. Let's start a community together and work through some of this stuff, and hopefully help each other out. Okay? Until next time, bye-bye.